An announcement today from the Southeastern Conference about who's going to be at Media Days with Kirby Smart, who's, of course, obligated. He has to go to Media Days in the 21. I don't know how many times I've been to Media Days, but it's been every single one of them since 2002. And there was one Media Days that was a total fiasco. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But you got to go if you're a head coach. Lately, in the last 10 years, it's not that lately, the league pushed it from two players to three from each school. So, for instance, 2002, it was John Stinchcomb and Terrence Edwards. Those were the two guys that went with Mark Richt to Birmingham for that. Thank God this Media Days is in Atlanta. I got to tell you, I've had enough of Birmingham where they host the event. It's not good enough. Nothing ever works correctly in terms of it just is not good enough. So, with that said, it will be Cedric Van Pran, Nolan Smith, and Stetson Bennett. So Stetson Bennett will make his first appearance at Media Days. Those guys are not the only ones. Here are some guys that sort of pop out for each school. So Alabama's bringing both Bryce Young and Will Anderson. That will be a marquee event when Alabama goes on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. KJ Jefferson from Arkansas, the quarterback. Bumper Pool, the linebacker. Tank Bigsby, the best running back in the league, perhaps nationally. The Florida Gators are going to send Anthony Richardson as well as Vontrell Miller. I'm leaving some guys out because they don't really matter. Will Levis for Kentucky. For LSU, BJ Ojolari is making his first appearance as a player going to Media Days. I don't know any of these Ole Miss players. So I'm going to skip them. Mississippi State, I don't know any of those guys either, but they are all graduated seniors for state. So that's going to be an older team. Same story with Mizzou, all seniors. I don't know any of these folks. South Carolina, I do know Zach Pickens, who's a pretty good player for Carolina, a defensive lineman. For Tennessee, Hendon Hooker, of course. Cedric Tillman's going to be there as well. They're both guys who've graduated. And then for Texas A&M, you're going to have um, Damani Richardson, a DB, and for Vanderbilt, I don't know any of these guys as well, but Mike Wright is a quarterback, and we'll just see how that goes for all of them. For Georgia, I think the number one thing that's going to be talked about, discussed, whatever you want to call it, is you know the fight now with Alabama for supremacy of this league. In the last, let me print well, I printed it off earlier today, but I'd have to stand up and go get it and all this stuff. But the last since 2013 and every year but two since 2010, the media has picked Alabama to win the SEC. At no time has anyone ever picked Georgia. Has the media ever picked Georgia? The only two times that the media has picked someone other than Alabama was in 12 when LSU was picked to win it and Alabama won it. And then 15 when Auburn was picked to win it and finished last place in the West. So Alabama was picked number one when Georgia won it in 17. And several of the times that Alabama won the SEC, they were picked to win it, which was 14, 16, 18, 20, and 21. They won it last year. They should win the biggest game of the year. So, um, you know, Alabama will be picked again. The only time since 1992 that Georgia has been picked to win the SEC is in 2004. And we know, of course, that Georgia's won the league multiple times um, this century. So um, the predictions of folks in the league in the media are not always uh, the it's not people aren't real great at it, but I mean it's like the Star Wars bar scene at media days. I mean there are some legitimate reporters for sure, but there's way too many other folks, radio folks, .com folks. They just have no idea really what they're talking about, and their vote counts just as much as mine does. I do not typically vote on the players anymore, just because. I don't know enough about the offensive linemen in the league to really take advantage of that. I don't want to slight anyone on that, but that's what it will be. That's what folks will talk about with the Dogs. Are they going to be able to beat Alabama again? Yada yada yada. Are the two teams going to play again? It would be the third time in it'd be the third time in 30 games, so not that many times necessarily. Actually, it would be the third time in like 17 games because they played game 13 and 15, and then that would be game 13. So it would be pretty quick. Anyway, if you want to pick up Dogstruction, excuse me, I'm running out of copies of the book. I'm gonna have to order it again, which sort of slows me down shipping them out to y'all. Make sure you're picking it up today. Order it today, and with our 80-page commemorative edition of Dogstruction, you get the 2022 season preview with it. A lot of folks are getting these in their hands. They are enjoying it. If you just want the season preview, click down below. We've got a link. If you're in Athens, you can pick up Dogstruction as well as the 2022 preview at Red Zone. And you can go see Mindy and Scott at Red Zone. It's a great store on Clayton Street, which is one street north of the Arch, if you know where that is. So walk away from campus for a street, and then up College, and then you turn left past Harry's, and you'll be at Red Zone before you know it. I do think that the two things that will be discussed more than anything are Georgia's fight with Alabama. Can they do it again? And secondly, it'll be about Stetson Bennett. I mean, it will be about, is this guy good enough to lead Georgia to the conference championship and beyond? Um, they did not win the conference championship this past year, Georgia, and they were favorites in that game. So that was a, if you want to call a failure. I mean, okay, but backing that up with the performance that he had in the national championship run against Michigan and then Alabama, certainly in the second half, Stetson has certainly proven that he can get the job done in the biggest moments, but that's not how our world works. We are busy poking holes in every possible thing we can see. I saw a graphic from 24/7 that I'm going to talk about in the near future that was just total insanity, talking about Stetson Bennett. But I think Stetson won't be here in 2 years. But Alabama, Georgia will, and we've seen, you know, we've seen this game. I'm not going to call it a rivalry. I mean, you can only have so many rivalries. We've seen the escalation of this game into a thing where when the two teams play, they have never played in this well, I don't know about this century, but this from 2012 on, they've never played before fewer than about 7 million people on television. That's the lowest game that they played, which is in 2015. Typically, when Georgia and Alabama play, you're talking about an audience of 10 million people watching or more. Okay, so it is a major college football game. If they played every year, it would be it would be the equivalent of Auburn, Alabama, or Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, the game is a huge game. What we don't know yet is where we are in this thing because this has got a life of its own. And these things have a life of their own. Clemson, Alabama, it's kind of fizzled, right? I mean, the two haven't played since 2018. That's coming on 4 seasons now. But Georgia and Alabama can't avoid one another, and they did in 2017 until the national championship game, but and they did in 19 because Alabama was not in the SEC championship in either of those games. But this does seem like tectonic plates shifting. And Georgia's got to do its part. I mean, it's got to continue to win against Alabama in critical moments. And I wonder what the ramifications of last year's national championship was or is or will continue to be. Because when you break through, you know, it means you've experienced it. You know how it feels to take that win. And I think for the Dogs, I do not expect them to, sweep Alabama from here on out. But when they do play one another again, there will be some. There has to be some hesitancy or doubt from Alabama because they've taken a loss now. Now, it was a convincing loss, yeah. And so many of the games from Georgia and Bama, with the exception of two of them, which was 15 and 20, the vast majority of these games were decided on the last play of the game. Now, the 21 game was not, but it was a close game until the end. And, 20 was pretty close, but not decided on the last play of the game. 15 was definitely not. So you have 12, 17, 18. I mean, you don't get a lot of games in series that come down to the last play like that. Georgia and Florida are not that way. Georgia and Tennessee are not that way. Obviously, Tech and Georgia are not. There was a time it felt like when Auburn, Georgia became like that, but even that kind of went away. But Georgia and Alabama have increasingly done a great job of playing each other close, and then Georgia loses. What does it mean that Alabama lost to the Dogs? That's the question from here on out.